Okay, so today what we're going to be doing, we are going to talk about population, and what is a population, and all of that stuff. So, population is an entire group of people or objects. So an example of a population would be the students at New Salem Almont High School. That is a population. A smaller population would be the 7th grade class. Okay. Technically, yes, it would be a sample, but it depends on what you're talking. If you're talking about, so if our population is the students at New Salem Almont High School, well, a sample is a part of the population. So then we could say an example of the sample would be the 7th graders. Doesn't matter. Okay, so that's a population and a sample. So population is everybody, think big picture. A sample is a small chunk of that picture. So it's just a piece of the puzzle. Okay. Unbiased sample, an unbiased sample. They're taking notes in here. We're good. I think so. Thanks. An unbiased sample is representative of the large population. Larger. So it represents a wide variety of people or objects. It's selected at random. So there's no rhyme or reason to why these people were chosen. And it's large enough to provide accurate data.
So, like how the juniors and seniors are walking around asking how many hours we're on technology and stuff,
It's an unbiased sample. Okay. A biased sample, this is a sample that is not representative of the larger population and usually favors a certain part of the population. So, not representative of the larger population. And usually favors a certain part of the population. Okay. So that's saying they asked a question, but they asked it in such a way that they knew certain people would answer it the way they wanted it to be answered. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of these cases and we're going to say, is this biased or unbiased? So Casey surveyed the members of his soccer team to ask them what their favorite sport is.
That's biased.
Why is it biased?
It's biased because they're already playing soccer.
He's only asking members of his soccer team. So only asking members of the soccer team. Okay. An airline is conducting a survey to determine whether people prefer to check their luggage or carry it on. They asked every 10th person who walks into an airport. That's unbiased because it's a large sample. And they're selected at random. They don't know who's going to be the 10th person to walk in or the 20th person to walk in because they're doing it every 10th. You have equally of a chance of being that 10th person as I do. So it's a large population. And selected at random. Okay. Mani would like to approximate the number of students in her school with part-time jobs. She surveys the 28 students in her math class.
Unbiased.
This would be biased. Why would it be biased?
Because it's just a small part of it out of her entire
It's a
school.
small population. Good. It's a small sample. And it's only students in her math class.
And the students in her math class could be seniors compared to
Mhm.
sophomores and freshmen.
Exactly. Finally, at a school district, so a school district would like to know what type of communication, email, text, or phone parents prefer. They survey the parents of the 7th grade students enrolled in the district. Why is this biased? Good, they only chose 7th grade parents. Good. Do we understand the difference between a population and a sample, and an unbiased sample and a biased sample? Yes, Haley.
Like, so, on the one above you said small sample, like on
Mhm.
3 you said small sample, but then on 4 you only put down, only surveyed the 7th grade parents.
Mhm.
You have to,
You could have said that it was a small
so
sample.
you can just choose which one you want to write. Is that
I would most likely, though, be looking for these answers.
okay.
Okay, we don't have any questions. Flip on over to the back page where we're going to talk about predicting outcomes. Okay, so the results of an unbiased sample are proportional to the results of a population. You can use unbiased samples results to make predictions about the population. Biased samples results should not be used to make predictions about the population. So it says Green Valley Middle School conducted a survey of 125 random students, asking them how much time they spend each night on homework. Results are shown in the table to the left. So we know a total of 125 students were asked. What percent of the students spend no more than 30 minutes on their homework each night? 4 students. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 4 divided by 125 because this is how many said less than 30 minutes. This is how many students are in it. It's going to give you a decimal, and what do you do with that decimal? Make it into a percent, so multiply by 100. So you should get like 0.032 in your calculator, rounding probably. And then you're going to multiply that by 100. And so 0.032 multiply by 100, that's going to give you 3.2% of that population. It's not very big. Okay, well that's how many people only do homework for less than 30 minutes. Okay. What percent of students spend at least 31 minutes on homework each night? I add all of them together that aren't 0 to 30, because it says at least 31 minutes. So that means it can be 31 minutes, but it could be 50 minutes. It could be 100 minutes. We don't know. It just has to be a minimum of 31 minutes. Good. So I'm going to take, 64 plus 25 plus 32. That's going to give me 121. Divide that by our total of 125. That's roughly going to give you 0.968. I'm going to multiply that times 100. And so what percent of students spend at least 31 minutes? 96.8%. Now what we're going to do is it says if there is 1,200 students in the school, approximately how many would you expect to spend more than 1 hour on homework each night? So what we need to look at is we need to figure out how many students we surveyed spend more than an hour. What two categories? How'd you get 57? 25 plus 32, because those are the students who spent more than an hour. So they spent more than 61 minutes, so at least 61. Then how do I figure out what that percent is? How do I find that percent? How do I find that percent of how many students I surveyed? Divide by 125. Because this is how many students answered that. This is how many students we surveyed. That's going to get me about 0.5 or 456, which is 45.6%. What I'm going to do now, since I know what percent that is, I'm going to take how many students, if there's this many students, and I'm going to multiply that by our percent. But I left it as a decimal because remember you can't multiply percents by numbers, you have to turn them back into decimals. So I'm going to take 0.456 and I'm going to multiply that by 1,200. Roughly, because we can't have a decimal of a student, I should have 547 students who study more than an hour each night.
I did it in a completely different way.
Okay. Well, this is the way we're going to do it.
Can I do it that way? Can I do that? Special one way?
We'll talk about it after. Okay. So now, do we have any questions on this top problem? Okay. Now we're going to move on to an Italian restaurant. Asked 150 random customers what type of pasta they preferred. Results are shown in the table to the left. What we want to know is what percent of people surveyed said spaghetti or macaroni. So what do I need to do? I need to add them. I need to take 72 for spaghetti plus 18 for macaroni. That's going to get me 90. What do I divide 90 by? 150. That's going to get me 0.6. Multiply that by 100. So, yep, that gets me 60%. Wait, what?
I got 0.6 repeating. Yeah, I did too.
0.6 repeating?
90 divided by 150.
That's not what I got. 90? I thought it was 78. Oh, yeah, that is 90. I got 0.6.
90 divided by 150 is 0.6.
I got 72. It's 100.
Yep. Make sure you have 90 divided by 150. Okay. So that gets me 60%. What percent of people surveyed did not say spaghetti?
You have to add all the rest of them.
I have to add all of them except spaghetti. So I'm going to take 21 plus 18 plus 39. That's going to give me 78. And I take 78 divided by 150.
Which would be 0.52.
Yep, 0.52. Multiply by 100 to get 52%. Linguine. I'll show you a picture after. It's like a thicker noodle.
It's like spaghetti noodles but flat.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh, that's the one we had on
That's
Fredo
so
last Friday.
Okay. If the restaurant is ordering 500 boxes of pasta, approximately how many should be linguine? So what am I going to do? I want to know which percent's going to be linguine. 21 divided by 150. That's going to give me 0.14, which is 14%. And what am I going to do with that? I'm going to take 0.14 times 500. And I'm going to order approximately 70 boxes of linguine. No, because I want to know which pasta we're talking about. Questions on number 6 here. Larson. Okay. Our last problem here then. A landscaper offers 3 colors of mulch, red, black, and brown. They randomly survey their customers to see which they prefer. Of these customers, 62 prefer brown, 22% prefer black, and the rest preferred red. So if they're ordering 800 of bags of mulch, how many should be brown? How do I find out what 62% of 800 is? 0.62 times 800. So they should order 496 bags of brown mulch. Okay. It's like the decorative stuff that you kind of put in the ground. Okay. If they're ordering 800 bags of mulch, how many red should they order? How do I figure out how much percent is red?
Well, you add 62 and 22, and then you subtract that from 100.
62 and 22. So I'm going to get 84. And then I'm going to take 100 minus 84 to get 16. So 16% of my bags are red. So I'm going to take that 0.16 times 800. So how many bags of red mulch should they order? 128 bags of red mulch. Okay, questions?